Okay, guys, I think we'll go ahead and get started. We've seen a lot of people join in the last minute or so. So just to introduce myself, my name is Allison. I'll be showing you around Rentman today. However, I just want to give you a brief intro into how the webinar will work and what we'll walk through in the software, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So today I am supported by my colleague Tim, who is going to manage the Q&A function. And
hey guys,
there's
thanks
Tim.
for joining.
Some of you may already have spoken to Tim before, but Tim will be answering all the questions that come in the Q&A. So at the moment you're in view-only mode, which means you can't speak, but you can ask all of your questions at the bottom of your screen in the Q&A box. You can ask questions, comment on the questions of others if you have more to add, and then Tim will be managing those questions, and then some of them we may even answer live. And then at the end, we'll just keep it open for a general Q&A if anybody has any additional questions. And then in the demo today, I'm going to walk you around the software. I'm going to show you a little bit about a few modules in Rentman, and then we'll create a project together, send out a quotation, plan crew, and we'll go ahead and book everything out in the warehouse and see how everything works. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started today. If you do need to leave early, no worries. We will send out a recording after the webinar as well. Okay, so if there's anybody that hasn't seen Rentman before, just to give you a brief introduction, Rentman is a tailor-made software for the AV and live event industry. So it helps you find that combination of equipment, crew, and transport. So planning that, but also communicating the planning, that's exactly what Rentman is good at. And complementary to this, we also have some quoting and invoicing features to help you fix the financial side of your events. And that planning is actually evident here in the dashboard. So the dashboard is actually where you'll find an overview of everything that's going on. Here at the top, you'll see for today and tomorrow, your equipment going in and out, but also your crew and transport. Down below here in the dashboard, you'll find your projects, your planning, and your to-do, which give you an overview for the coming week. You'll also notice these colorful tiles here. You can click on any of these tiles and be taken to that area of Rentman. For example, a red tile, there may be some projects that are open for invoicing, or you may have projects that haven't been confirmed yet. It's just nice because you can go directly to that area and see only what you need to see. Okay, so while the dashboard is an overview of your planning, we're going to move on to the schedule, which is an overview of all of your communications. So with Rentman, there are two types of users that can access the system. The first one is called a power user, and it's the only paid user role in Rentman. Anybody that is creating a project, adding equipment, and planning crew, but also sending out the financial documents, that's considered a power user, basically anybody that's doing the planning and scheduling. And then any basic user is your crew that are executing the events. So any freelancers, technicians, and even your warehouse crew, they can all have a free login to Rentman. Most of the time, 9 out of 10 logins are for free. So all of that crew can log in to see what needs to be done and when. So for example, I can come in to view my personal schedule here, and I can see that I'm planned as a sound technician on Friday. I can see where that is. I can also see who are the other crew members that are planned with me. I can quickly print a packing slip of the equipment I need, but also access notes and files associated with this project. So everything I need as a crew member to execute this event is all right here for me. Not only is it here in the desktop, but your crew can download the Rentman mobile app on iOS or Android, and they can access the same exact information on the go just from their mobile device. Your crew can also not only see this on the desktop and in the mobile app, but they can synchronize this schedule with their own personal calendar. So again, it's a variety of ways to make sure everyone's informed of what needs to be done. On the crew planning side, your crew can also indicate their own availability. So if I know next week that I may not be available, I can drag on the calendar and I can go ahead and indicate myself as unavailable. So for the crew planner, this makes it really nice and easy when they're planning crew for events because they'll already know who's available and who's not available. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to the equipment module so you can see how your equipment is imported and also a few different things about setting that up. So here you have your equipment list, which you can go ahead and import that straight from an Excel document. You can do a new import, and also later if you need to update any information, you can do an update import as well. Once you import your equipment items, you can of course create your kits and cases and add alternatives and accessories. When you click on an equipment item, you can see some of that information here to the side in the widget. So I can see if this item is part of any combinations of items, if it's an accessory, but also any tasks, notes, or files on the equipment level as well. So if you'd like to add any images for your equipment items or even a manual, you can just drag and drop those files here under each equipment item. Now I can also take a look at my equipment item and its availability. If I open the timeline here, I can view the entire availability of this item and see the projects that it's already planned on. Now, just to explain how this timeline works, you'll see that there's two lines, the top and the bottom one here. This first line indicates your planning availability. So this gives you how many items you have to plan on projects. This also includes if you've sub-hired any items, but also if you have any items that are in repair, it will always calculate and take that into account. The second line, however, is your physical warehouse stock. So in this case, you can see that I own 2 of this equipment. I have 2 physically in the warehouse, but actually only 1 is available to be planned. And that's because one of the items I have in the warehouse is actually in a repair. So you'll always see that difference between what you can plan and what's physically in your warehouse. Now in this view as well, you can actually go ahead and reserve your equipment items for certain projects. Now in Rentman, all projects are taken into account in your planning availability. It's only when a project is confirmed will it go ahead and be deducted from your warehouse stock. Now, if you have some projects coming up, maybe you need to sub-hire some equipment, you may want to go ahead and reserve your own equipment items on a certain project. So I've just clicked on the project here in the timeline, and I can go ahead and reserve my equipment for this project. For example, if you have a sub-hire that you maybe want to spend less money on, you can sub-hire that for shorter days, and you can reserve your equipment for the longer project. Gives you that flexibility. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on to projects. I'm just going to take a brief pause here in case anybody has any questions so far. You can pop them in the Q&A at the bottom. Okay, so here in the projects list, you can immediately tell in the list view which items have been, or which projects have been confirmed and which are still waiting on confirmation from the customer. So anything here in black text means it's confirmed or on location. Anything in orange text means we're still waiting confirmation from the customer. So you have a nice visual in the colors there. Furthermore, you can change the view of your projects. Some people like the timeline view as well, because it gives you an idea of how many projects you have going on simultaneously at one time. Of course, you can also change your view using presets and filters. So a preset is basically just a combination of filters that you've set and saved for yourself. So for example, here I have a preset where I only look at my confirmed projects. I can also still look at projects where there's still crew required. So again, you can set that up to your preferences. Okay, so you can also click on a project here and see some information to the side in the widget, just like with the equipment. So for this project, I can see the general information, the timing, who the customer is, and location. I can also see tasks, notes, and files on the project level as well. Now with the Rentman Pro license, you get 100 gigabytes of storage. So of course you can drag and drop any files that you also need to save to the project level. Now with the tasks, this can become quite handy because you can just simply create tasks for a project straight from the widget. So for example, if I need one of our sales colleagues to call the customer to confirm some things, I can just simply say call the customer. I can set a deadline for this. And then I can make this for every crew member or just for specific crew members. So in this case, I'll assign this to myself and my colleague Amy as well. I can also add any specific notes, any other information needed, and I can go ahead and save that task. Now you can see here it's already overdue because I set today as the deadline. So you can manage your tasks here on the project level, also in the Rentman mobile app, and then all tasks can be found in the task module. Now, once it's completed, of course, you can simply click the check mark here and complete that. You'll see the strike through come through when it's completed. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and create a new project in Rentman. There's 3 ways to create a new project in Rentman. And the first way is through actually just selecting the project. And you can simply duplicate that project if you're just going to do what you did before. The other 2 ways is by adding a new project. You can add a blank project with no information, or you can add a project template. Now, project templates are really useful because you can actually, oh, sorry, I'm just going to take a break here because we have a question on what I was just talking about with the tasks. So it looks like somebody had a question on how are you notified of the tasks. Actually, your notification preferences can be found here at the top with this little bell. When you click on the bell and click on preferences, you'll find all of your notifications and how you can set those up. So for example, when your crew are invited to a project, they can be notified in a variety of ways. But on the task side, if I scroll down here, you can see the different notifications you can get when tasks are assigned or when it's expired. And you can set those up via email, mobile app, or web. So you can receive notifications in a variety of ways. Okay. So just moving on, we were talking about adding a new project. So again, you can duplicate an existing project and then add a new one that's blank, or you can use the project templates. Now, a project template is a project you've done once and save that as a template because you often do the same setup or the same times that you did before. And a project template just makes it a lot easier to send out a quotation in the future because you have all the project information already there in the template to use. So here I'm going to select my 2-day production template. We can actually preview the template as well to see some more information about this. So I can see that my project template already has a time schedule here. It's got a setup, production days, and breakdown. I can also see that I already have some equipment groups set up as well based on the time schedule. So again, it's got a lot of information already in it. So now what I can do is actually select a new date. So we'll go for next Friday, the 27th. And now my new date will actually be applied on the time schedule. So now I can select this project template. And now you'll see I have some information like a project name and also a time schedule already. I also have equipment and crew and transport as well.
Hey, Allison, we have a quick question by John about custom project templates and the way they're set up.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes sense. Okay, so what the way that you would set up your project templates is you would create a blank project from scratch one time. Once you've created that project, you can then go in the configuration module under project templates. You'll click add a new one and you'll simply search for the project you already created. From there, you can actually save that project as a template to be used later on. So it's nice and easy setup. You just create the project template once and then save it to be used later on. Let us know if you have any further questions about that. Okay, so we've just created a new project with our project template here. Again, it already has a name, which is the house party. It's come from our template. And it's now in the concept status. So every new project that you start in Rentman will always be in the concept status. Once you send out a quotation, then it will change to option. Once that quotation has been confirmed by the customer, then the project status will change to confirmed. And then these last 3 statuses are all managed in the warehouse. So when you pack your equipment out and when it comes back in. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add a customer here as well. Once you add a customer to Rentman, you can also apply special invoicing moments or even automatic project warnings or project notes that come into the notes of the project. So again, it's just a nice way to keep track of individual things on a customer level. And I'm also going to add a location here as well. Now that I've added the location, Rentman is asking if I should also edit the distance. And what that means is that you can add your warehouse location in Rentman, and Rentman can calculate the distance and the costs associated with your transport based on a rate that you set. So again, if you just set a $1 rate per mile, then Rentman can apply the cost for you. Okay, moving on. We also have our project types. These are just default types that we've put in the system for you, but of course you can create your own. The nice thing is you can see a view of all of your projects based on your project type, and you can also assign them colors just to see that in the calendar. Next, we have our time schedule, and this is very important to understand. So with every project in Rentman, you will always have a planning period and you will always have a usage period. The planning period is the period that Rentman uses to calculate your equipment availability. So that timeline that we just saw before in the equipment module, that's all based on the planning period. The planning period should be the moment you start prepping your equipment until the moment it returns and is back on the shelf. The usage period, however, is the period that Rentman uses to calculate the cost back to your customer. So again, the planning period may include a prep time, a setup time, and a transport time, whereas the usage period is usually just the event times. Now you'll also notice some other times here in the time schedule. So for example, we have a setup and a breakdown time as well. And this is, I recommend being as detailed as possible with these times, because what you can do is connect your equipment and your crew to these times later on. So now if I actually went and changed my setup time from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, 2 hours later, Rentman would also edit the equipment and the crew that I've connected to this time in the time schedule. What that means is that everything is connected to the time schedule. So if you have to change anything, which we know in this industry, things change, it means you don't have to change it everywhere else. Change it here, and it's changed everywhere for you. Okay, and lastly, we just want to talk about notes. Notes can be really useful if you need to communicate with a few different people in regards to the project. So for example, if you need to communicate with your crew that are scheduled on the project, you can display a note in the schedule where they're scheduled for the project, so they can know what needs to be done. On the other side, you could actually display a note to your crew in the warehouse that are actually packing for the event. And then furthermore, you can also display this on quotations, contracts, so you can communicate with your customers as well. So again, just one function here, but you can communicate in a variety of ways. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and save our project. Because we are cloud-based, every time you save, we back it up for you. So if anything were to happen and everything accidentally got deleted, no worries. We can back it up within 10 minutes to yesterday. Moving on to the equipment list here. You'll notice I already have a list of equipment. This has all come from my project template. So again, just makes it a lot easier. I don't have to add everything again. I can make some minor adjustments, and then I can quickly send out a quote. However, I'm going to take some time going through the equipment part here, just so I can show you how to add equipment to the project and some different features on that. The first thing I'm sure you'll notice is that we have a lot of red items here in our list. What this means is that these items are in short, so if this project were to be confirmed, I wouldn't be able to fulfill these items. So there's two options at this point to solve these shortages. What I can do is check for alternatives. So I've just selected my mixing console here, and I'm going to go to the side in the widget and scroll down to the bottom. I can see, again, its accessories and combinations, but I can also see if I've set up any alternatives for this item. It looks like I do have an alternative that I've set up. So what I can do is actually add the alternative, and I can delete the item that's in short. So I can actually go ahead and solve my shortage directly from my own stock without having to sub-hire, saving myself a bit of money there. However, it's not always so nice, and it's not always so easy to find alternatives. So in that case, what you can do is you can sub-hire your equipment from another partner. So you could select the item you need to sub-hire, and you can sub-hire directly from within a project. However, this is only really useful if you sometimes only sub-hire on occasion. If you do find that you're coming into a busy period and you may need to sub-hire several times, then I would recommend going to the sub-hire module. Here in the sub-hire module, I can view a list of all of my shortages across all of my projects over the period that I select. So here I'm looking at only confirmed projects over the next 2 weeks, and I can see everything that I need to do. I can also see the explanations for why they're short. Maybe something had to go into repair, so I have to, that would be an invalid reservation. So again, it's a really useful tool here in the shortages tab. But what you can do is you can actually select your equipment across multiple projects and create a sub-hire project. A sub-hire project is just like a regular project. It has its own statuses. You enter your supplier details and location, agree on the financials, and then you can simply send a sub-hire slip directly to your supplier. Again, with the sub-hire module and doing it this way, you're not sending multiple requests to the same supplier. You are sub-hiring across multiple projects and just sending one request. This makes Rentman a little bit different than other software because Rentman will actually calculate the costs from each project back to the project. When you upload your equipment into Rentman, you'll upload also the sub-hire price. So Rentman can actually accurately calculate the cost back to each project when you need to sub-hire. Okay, we're just going to go back into our project here.
Hey, Allison, we had a question pop up from Frank. He's wondering in how far you can analyze how often you have subrented something. So, you could evaluate if you're going to purchase that item or, if it's worth purchasing that based on how often you have subhired it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where our statistics module will come in handy for you. I'm just going to briefly go into the statistics module to show you, and we'll get back to our project in just a moment. So here in the statistics module, you can run statistics and get reports on a variety of areas. So actually, if I go to add a new statistic, this is where you can see all the different areas you can run a statistic in. So on the project level, on the equipment level as well, but here on the sub-hire level. So this is where you would run your report based on a period of time that you select. You can also add additional columns. Basically, when you select this, you'll just build your own report. You can add information that you need or remove columns you don't need, and then just set the period. And you can actually export this as an Excel file and do further analytics with it if you'd like. I hope that's fully answered your question there, Frank, but let us know if not. Okay. So we were just talking about sub-hiring. Of course, you can sub-hire here within the project or also aside. It just depends on what your needs are. Furthermore, you'll also notice these gray bars here with the times attached. These are your equipment groups. So you can create a new equipment group here from the top simply by giving it a name. These equipment groups are a nice way to organize them on documents, but also in the warehouse as well. And then what you can do is actually attach it to a time. So as I mentioned before, with the time schedule, this is how all the times are connected. By default, it's always connected to the usage period, but of course you can select a different time in the time schedule from this drop-down list. This is especially useful if maybe you only wanted to plan some equipment items for setup. It's maybe for your own needs, but not to actually be used at the event. So you can connect those to different times here. So once you have all of your equipment groups, you can simply add equipment to each group by selecting the group and selecting the equipment on the side. You can just double click it. Again, you can also add combinations of items, as I mentioned before, kits, cases, accessories. And I do want to go through that a bit with you as well. So here you can see this orange icon here. This actually denotes a kit. And I can actually open the kit to see the contents inside. So a kit is a flexible combination of items. I sometimes rent these items together and sometimes I rent them separately. On the other side, we have here this brown icon which denotes a case, and a case is not flexible. All of the items inside a case would always have to go together. In fact, if you are planning on serializing your equipment items, actually a case would have assigned serial numbers inside, whereas a kit would not. The last way to combine items is through the use of accessories. So I'm just going to look up our D12 speaker here, and by double clicking, I'm just adding it here to our project. But now Rentman is also asking if I should add these accessories that comes with it. This is an optional setup, so you don't have to add these accessories. You could close it, or you could choose to add them, one or the other. Now you can customize the user journey of your accessories. Maybe you need mandatory accessories so that they're always added every time, or they can be optional like we just saw where Rentman will ask you. Okay, so this is the equipment module. If there's no questions, I'm going to go ahead and move on to crew and transport. So at this point in our project planning process, we're just adding the equipment and crew and transport jobs we need, and then we'll send out a quote. After that, we'll plan individual people and vehicles, and we'll book everything out in the warehouse. Okay. So here in the crew and transport tab, this is where you would actually estimate how much it would cost you for the jobs that you need to execute the event. So you'll see here on the left-hand side, I have a variety of roles like sound technician, light technician. I also have my transport functions as well. Each of these has its own cost associated. So now if I take a look at my sound technician role, I can see that I can set an hourly rate or a fixed rate for this. Furthermore, with my transport, as I mentioned before, you can set a $1 per mile rate as well. My account is in kilometers, apologies, but it would be in miles for you. And then on the fixed rate side, you can also apply that for your transport, or you could apply both. Maybe you want a fixed base rate and then charge a $1 per mile rate. It's up to you. Now, when Rentman calculates the distance for your transport, it will be calculated here in the distance box. This is only if you choose to take over the distance from location. You can, of course, manually adjust this distance as well. So furthermore, what you'll do is you'll just create your function groups. So I've got here my setup group and my production day 1 and 2 groups. I've also attached them here to the time schedule. You remember before I actually had this set at 2 o'clock and I've changed it to 4. So again, that's already set here for me. And I can actually add new groups at the top, just like with my equipment, and attach it to the time schedule, just like I showed you before. So again, you'll just create these groups and you'll add the functions under each group. And then later on, you'll plan individuals on each function. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move over to the financial tab. And here in the financial tab, you'll notice that there's 3 sections of costs here. So the first one is our estimated costs, which we actually just did in our crew and transport tab. We estimated how much a sound technician would cost us. Next, you'll see that we have planned costs. So when we actually plan an individual as a sound technician, it may be more or less than what we estimated. And then after the event, your crew can actually register their time in time registration. They can do that here on the desktop or straight from their mobile app. So when they finish the event, they can actually register their time directly. And if your crew ended up working longer or less time than you planned them for, you'll see those differences in costs here under actual costs. So again, you see that difference at each step of the project planning process. And if this is all within 5% of each other, well, then you'll know that Rentman will make its way back. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create a quotation at this point and send that to my customer. You'll notice here with the quotation, we do have this orange background here with company information, which is coming from your letterhead. So you can upload your own letterhead PDF into Rentman and choose that here to make sure that that's in line with your own company branding. And then you'll see all the black text here, which has come from our project, our document template. And these are completely customizable. You can change the look and feel, the fonts, whatever you'd like to make that look as close as possible to the quotes you're already doing, or even better if you'd like. This particular document template is very compact. It's not a lot of information. It just lists the groups of equipment and the pricing, of course. But what you could choose to do is have a more extended template. If I regenerate my quote now, you'll see that this template actually goes into a lot more detail. It lists out all of the equipment items. I have some notes here as well. And it goes through everything that I've planned on this project. Now you can be as extensive or as compact as you'd like. It's completely up to you. But once you have a quote that you're quite nice and happy with, you can go ahead and email this directly to your customer. Once you email this to your customer, you have the option to actually apply a communication template as well. So here I can just create a nice communication template that will pull the names from the project I'm creating. And this saves you a bit of time from writing an email every time. In configuration, you can also set up your own signature, so everything looks nice and easy when you send your emails to your customers. So once I send this email, my project status will change to option, meaning a quote has been sent. And when your customer receives this quotation, they have the option to digitally agree to it. Now I'm going to go ahead and sign our quotation here. I'll click I agree and enter my details. And I can go ahead and provide a lovely signature here and accept. Now I have the option to download my own signed copy of the agreement. But if I now go back into the Rentman tab, I'll also receive a notification as soon as that is signed. And of course, you can set up your own notifications via email and the mobile app as well. And if I now go back into my general tab of my project, you'll notice that my project is now confirmed. I have a confirmed status, and I also have the quotation I sent and the signed version are now saved under the project files. So again, Rentman will automatically save the financial documents associated with the project. And of course, you can drag and drop anything else you need. So now that we have a confirmed project, we're going to go ahead and plan our crew on this project. And I can do that here from the planning tab. What I can do is go ahead and open our extended crew planner. It's just a bit of a nicer planning journey. And I'm just going to zoom in just a little bit more so I can see my functions a bit better. Okay, so now we have our crew planning module. To start planning crew, you can simply select one of the jobs that you need to plan for. And you'll notice that the crew turn different colors on the side. What that means is green means that they are available. Red means that they are not available to be planned. And white means we are not sure. So in that case, you may need to invite them to see if they're available. Now, you can also select all of your crew and you can view them on a timeline below. You'll see here all of your crew members and their indicated availability. So green background means they're available, red means they're not. But you can also see where else you've planned your crew and if they're on holiday or have other appointments. So again, it's a nice view here with your timeline.
Hey, Allison, we have a quick question from Jean-Marc. He's wondering if, to confirm a project, if you will always have to send out the quotation and get it signed online, or if it's possible to do that manually as well.
Oh, great question. So Rentman does help to automate the steps in the project based on actions that you complete. So if you click send email and send the quote, it will change to option, but of course you can manually adjust these statuses as and when you need to. If you don't use Rentman to send your quotes, and if you don't use the digital signature, you would just need to manually adjust the statuses. So of course you can skip that or choose to use it, whichever you'd like. Okay, we were just going through the timeline of our crew here, and to actually start planning our crew, we can go ahead and double click on one of our crew members to plan them as a sound technician. So I've just planned Amy as a sound technician. This is immediately visible on Amy's personal schedule that I went through before. What I can also do here is I could ask Amy to start a little earlier, and I could ask Amy to start a little later as well, or I could fully just move Amy's planning. Now, we don't send notifications to Amy because of these changes, and the reason why is if we did, Amy would have just received 3 notifications in the space of 5 seconds from us, which would become quickly annoying for Amy. So in that case, of course, all changes are made in real time, so they're always visible on the schedule. But if you do want to inform a crew member of some major changes, you can simply select the envelope here at the top. You can select the project you want to inform them of and the crew member, and you'll find the planning of Amy here, which you can send directly to Amy. Now, this is also nice because it's linked to Google Maps, so she can click on the location to see that on a map immediately as well. Now, this is a way that you can communicate with a single crew member. Of course, on the project level, you can also create a call sheet and you can send that to all of your crew because it will include all of the planning from your crew. Okay, so furthermore, we're going to continue planning our crew. If I now click on the light technician role, I'll see that Ben is still marked here in white. So what I'm actually going to do is go ahead and invite Ben as a light technician. I can invite Ben just from here at the top, clicking on Actions and Invite Selected Crew Members. Now with invitations, there's a few different ways you can invite your crew for a project. The first way will give them the date and the time, and it will ask if they're available, yes or no. And then you as the planner can collect all the yeses and choose exactly who you'd like to plan. The second 2 invitations will directly plan them on the function, but it may not visibly show on their schedule yet. So if you visibly plan someone, it will immediately be visible on their schedule. And if you invisibly plan someone, it won't be visible on their schedule until you make it visible to them. Now, once you send out your invitations, you'll see those here in the invitations row. And of course, once you get the answers, you'll be notified of that as well. Now, if Ben went ahead and said yes, I can simply double click on Ben and also plan him as a light technician. Now, if you're working with a lot of crew, particularly a lot of freelancers, a nice feature that may be useful to you is the use of tags. What you can do with your crew is tag them on a variety of levels. You can see here I've tagged light technician and sound technician. What I can do is actually select one of these tags. We'll go for sound technician, and it'll quickly filter my crew and only show me my sound technician crew members. Of course, these are just some examples from us. You can add your own tags here. Maybe you want to tag them on driver's license level. Maybe only certain crew can drive the bigger vehicles. Maybe you also want to tag them on your priority. Maybe you have preference 1 light technicians and preference 2. That way you can send invitations out nice and quick just based on these tags and quickly know which crew you need to plan. Do we have any questions on the crew planning side of things? I'll take a quick moment just in case there's any questions. All right. Doesn't look like we have any questions yet, so I'm going to go ahead and move on. Don't hesitate to write them down when you think of them. Okay, so at this point in our process, we have a confirmed project.
Allison, we just got a question in from John.
Nice.
He's asking if it would be possible to import crew like you can also import equipment.
Absolutely. So the modules that are importable are your equipment, your contacts, your crew members, and your vehicles. You can use an Excel document to import into any of these modules. So with your crew members, it's just like with the equipment. You click on the little hamburger menu at the top and you click import here. Now the only thing you can't import is things like passwords, so you would need to create passwords for them, but then you can give them their password and they can log in and manage it from there. But of course, in the crew members module, you can also view a timeline of your crew here as well. So again, just slightly different settings here, but mostly the same. Okay, gonna go ahead and move on now. So at this point in our project planning process, we have a confirmed project. We've planned our crew on it. So at this point, it's time to actually send everything out in the warehouse and book everything back in. So here in the warehouse, you'll see an overview for today. Oh, just gonna open that. So here in the warehouse, you'll see an overview for today and tomorrow. You can see your transport that are going out, but also the scheduled crew members. And then at the bottom, you can also see all of your projects and at which status they're in the warehouse. Now you'll notice that my project is actually not here in the to-pack column. The reason for that is because I chose for my project to start on Friday the 27th. Projects will only come here in the to-pack column once they're confirmed and at the start of the planning period, because that's when you've told Rentman that you would start prepping and sending your items out. So that's when they come in here. At this point, you can access different documents such as your packing slip or your call sheets for your crew, and your warehouse personnel can also see any notes that you've added for them here in the warehouse. Now, you can book equipment in 2 different ways here. The first one is by clicking Book Equipment, and you can simply book your equipment here on the desktop. However, you can also do this exact same journey on the Rentman mobile app. What you can do is open the Rentman mobile app and the warehouse and scan this QR code. This will open the project inside the mobile app so you can start scanning or booking your equipment items. I'm going to go ahead and click Book Equipment now so that I can see my list of equipment that needs to go out. And again, this view is very similar both here and in the Rentman mobile app. It works in the exact same way. So if you want to go ahead and book equipment items over manually without scanning, you can just click the arrow here to book them over. On the mobile app, of course, you can just swipe these equipment items over from left to right to book them to on location. If you are scanning and tracking your equipment items with the mobile app, you can use your phone camera to scan a QR code or a barcode. Here on the desktop, you can use a scanner, any scanner that works as an alternative keyboard. What it'll do is just type in the numbers behind the code here and scan the item over. We also do recommend Zebra scanners as well for this use. Zebra scanners run on an Android operating system. What that means is you can actually download our Rentman mobile app right there on the scanner, and you can actually use the built-in scanner from the Zebra scanner to scan a little quicker. Just depends on your needs, but a few different ways to scan and book your items over. All right, but enough about scanning. Here we can actually start to book all of our items over. And we also have the option now to choose alternatives. So if I've actually gone to pack my SM58 microphone, maybe it could be damaged or it's not available, I can choose an alternative here in the warehouse. Now, I would like to note at this point that the warehouse view is available to basic users. You do not have to be a paid power user to access the warehouse. And of course, what you'll do is you'll set up user roles for all of your crew members. You can manage what your crew can actually do in the warehouse. If they can add additional equipment or book alternatives, these are all settings and permissions you can set in the user roles. Now I'm going to go ahead and choose an alternative for my microphone here, and I'll add the quantity. As soon as I book that alternative, that is immediately updated in real time. So you should think of this screen as your digital packing slip. It's always updated, whereas paper packing slips can become outdated quite quickly. All right, so I can continue to evaluate my items. However, if the customer calls, for example, and needed some extra last-minute equipment items, or maybe you just needed to plan some additional, you can do that here from the top as well. So you can add additional items simply by searching them. So for example, I'm going to add some extra microphones as well. At this point in the process, you never have to worry about Rentman overbooking something that's not available. It's only in the project screen can you sub-hire. At this point, you can only book what's available in the system. So for example, if I tried to add a lot of different microphones, Rentman would give me a warning saying there isn't enough available. At this case, I'm going to go ahead and plan 5 extra microphones, and you can choose to include this in the price calculation. What this means is that this can be included on the invoice that you send out to your customer as well.
Hey, Allison, we have a quick question from Frank. He's wondering if there's a way within Rentman to actually manage the receipt of sub-hired equipment. So when it is delivered, when it is picked up from the sub-hire firm, how do you handle the packing for the job? And also, is it possible to manage the return of the sub-rented equipment?
Right, yeah. Some good questions. So we are currently working on improving the way that sub-hires are managed. So at the moment, there's no, you can't manage the sub-hires except for you can create a project and add your transport so you know your transport is being used for that purpose. However, what you can do is that you can, just looking at the question, make sure I get all of it. Okay, so what you can do, of course, is actually on the mobile app, you can create packing lists, and you can actually digitally sign those packing lists as well. So that could be something that's interesting to you. If you've gone to pick up, you could manage those and have them digitally signed. I do want to send you some information after the webinar, though, specifically on sub-hires. We have a public roadmap where we've listed all the features that we're working on, and this is exactly one of those features. So it's something that we hope to launch in the future, and you can find that directly on the planned features on our roadmap. So Frank, I'll send you some more information on specifics of the sub-hiring. There's some things you can do and some things we're working on improving. So that way, yeah, you can have a view of everything that we're working on. Okay. All right, so with the equipment items, let's see, we just added our additional equipment items there, so that's already here. We also chose to include that on the price calculation, so this additional equipment group will show up just like that on the invoice as well. And then, of course, you can continue to pack your equipment items over. For the purposes of this webinar, I'm going to go ahead and book everything to location. And I now can change the project status to on location as well. So now when I go back to the warehouse, you'll see that the house party is now on location, and it will stay on location until we bring the equipment items back and we can evaluate for any damages or lost items. Otherwise, if the equipment items are not brought back by the end of the planning period, this project will move into the delayed column. And the delayed column gives you an overview of a conflict between your planned availability and your physical availability. Because you've told Rentman that your equipment items will become available after this date, if they are delayed, you just need to let Rentman know when you expect them back so that your availability can be calculated. Okay, we're going to go ahead and book our equipment items back. Again, this is the same journey here in the desktop and mobile app. Instead of the alternative button, you'll notice I now have a defective and a lost button. So as I unpack my equipment and put it back in the warehouse, I can evaluate for any damages. If something is damaged on the event or when you've brought it back to the warehouse, you can always mark it as defective, both here and in the mobile app. I can also choose the serial number of that item to build a history of that item. And I can leave a note here as well. We'll just say that the Q button broke. All right. And then what you can do is also tell Rentman if this item can still be used or if it can no longer be used. In either case, a repair will be set up for you. But if it cannot be used, Rentman will deduct this from availability. You also have the option to charge the cost back to your customer at this point. So you can charge them for the damages, and this will be included on the invoice. Now my defective item has been brought back, and of course I can continue to evaluate all of my damages and lost items. Any repairs or lost items can be found in the maintenance module and further managed there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and bring everything back. However, you will notice that I have 2 items left here on location. These are sales items. You can see that here by the 1 arrow instead of the double arrows for rental. With sales stock, if you are working with sales items and you do have them come back from an event, you just need to tell Rentman how much stock is coming back. So in this case, I will bring 1 gaffer tape back, but everything else will stay on location because it was consumed on location. So a little bit of a different journey there for sales items. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and change the status to returned, and we'll save our project. So now if we go back to the projects list, you'll see that our project is now in a return status. So at this point, I am going to go ahead and send out an invoice. You can send out an invoice directly from the project. Tim, do we have a question? I saw something.
Yeah, something just came in. Drew's asking if you're also able to use a scanner to actually return those items in.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the warehouse, you can scan your returns here or just inside the project by booking the equipment as well. So you can scan them both here on the desktop with any scanner that acts as an alternative keyboard, or you could just use the Rentman mobile app to scan them. Okay, perfect. Okay, so we were just talking about invoicing. So you can invoice from within the project, just like we did with the quotation, or you can invoice from the invoices module. In the invoices tab, you'll see all the invoices that have already been generated. And then in the to be invoiced tab, you'll see all of the invoices that are coming up to be invoiced. I don't have any that have turned red, which is a good thing. If they do turn red here, it means they're overdue for invoicing. That means the invoice date has passed. So what I can do now is select my invoice, and I can go ahead and click invoice to generate my invoice. If you are invoicing maybe 50% before or 50% after, it would be at this point that you would choose which percentage you're invoicing for, and then you can simply generate the new invoice. And again, an invoice is just like a quotation. You can completely customize the look and feel. You'll see here our additional equipment group that we added. And then down at the very bottom, you'll also see the damage that we charged for as well. Now you can email this directly to your customer using Rentman in the same exact way you did your quotation. And to handle your invoices from here, there's a few options for you. So all of your generated invoices are here in the Invoices tab. We see our house party invoice. What we could do now is we could actually push these invoices into our accounting software. So Rentman does have an integration with QuickBooks Online. And then soon we will launch an integration with Xero accounting software as well. With those accounting softwares, you can set up your account details and configuration, and you can choose the day or days of the week that you would like Rentman to automatically push your invoices into your accounting software. If you aren't using one of those accounting softwares, no worries. It's just a few extra clicks more to go ahead and import them into your own accounting software. You can simply export your invoices. That will export them as an Excel document on ledger code level. So all of your revenue will be categorized, and then you can simply import that into your own accounting software. Of course, if you don't have any accounting software as well, there are some basic functions you can use in Rentman. You can send payment reminders, and you can edit the payment status here as well. Okay, So we have gone through a project, we added our equipment and our crew and scheduled our crew members, and we also booked everything in and out of the warehouse and sent out our invoice. So I've brought you now to the end of our journey today, an introduction. But if anybody has any questions now, we're going to go ahead and open things up to more questions. Of course, if you need to leave, that's okay as well. We're just going to be going through questions at this point. Looks like we have some questions coming in. Oh. All right. So we have a question from Bob Barker asking if he can customize his ledgers. And yes, you can customize your ledgers. So we recently released an update where you can add your custom ledgers. That's all done in configuration. So you'll create your ledgers there, and then you can assign those to specific items in the software. Okay, we've got another question from Jonathan. Can you show a piece of equipment's usage history? So that just depends on if you are scanning and tracking your equipment. If you have serialized and are scanning your equipment items, yes, of course. That's done here in the equipment module. What you'll do is, I'll just close this here. What you'll do is select an equipment item here, and in the serial numbers tab. So here in the serials number, apologies guys. What you can do is you can select that serial number and you can view the history of that specific item, and you can choose the period that you want to view the history on. So you can see everything about that item. This is the biggest benefit of scanning and tracking your equipment items, because you can quickly see its entire life, and you'll know later on when to sell and that sort. So it's just vital information for you. Okay. It looks like we have another question here from Adam. And yes, of course, we will send a video of this webinar. So once we finish today, later on tomorrow, you'll receive a follow-up with the recording. Okay, so I'm glad you're excited, Adam. Jean-Marc was asking if maintenance can be pre-scheduled, and yes, of course, maintenance can be pre-scheduled. So in the maintenance module, you can, of course, create inspections, and you can also create that on the equipment level as well. So that's, when you have upcoming maintenance, you know that you have your inspections already set up for you. Okay, Frank has a question as well, and Frank wants a thorough setup of the statistics report. I can just briefly talk about the statistics. We only have a few minutes left, so Frank, I'd be happy to go through that with you one-on-one after the webinar as well, so that's no problem. With the statistics, of course, I mentioned before the different types of statistics you can run. So on crew, rental equipment, sales equipment, on sub-hires. And then Frank, you and I can go through how to build something specific to your needs later on. It's just a case of setting a period of time and adding the columns that you need. It's quite a simple process, and we can go through that later. Okay.
I think we have one more question from John. He's wondering if you could show him the calendar view for projects.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So here in the projects module, if we just look at the calendar view here, I'm going to close some things, make it a little bit nicer. And why are we looking at August? There we go. So now I can see all of my projects here in a calendar view. Of course, with the project types, you can color code those, so you can quickly get a nice impression here as well. Some good questions, guys. I appreciate it. All right, it looks like we don't have any more questions unless somebody's just thought of one last minute. We do have another question, and Bob is asking if support is included in the license. So yes, absolutely. I'm just going to take you here so we can show you the different licenses. So with the different licenses, with Rentman Lite, you do get support by email included. And with Rentman Classic and Pro licenses, you get support by phone and email. Our support agents are the true experts on the software. They deal with users every day from all over the world, so they have a lot of insight into challenges and solutions. So you know that you are in safe hands with our support team as well.
I think John has another question. He's wondering if you can export the e-commerce module to Google Sites. So I would assume that what you're looking for here, John, is a way to display the equipment online through some sort of web shop. Is that possible, Allison?
Yeah, so the only web shop that Rentman can work with is a WordPress web shop. So you would need WordPress with WooCommerce, and there is a Rentman plugin available that you can use. What happens with the web shop connection is if users place orders online on your website, then that gets forwarded, that order gets forwarded as a project into Rentman for you to manage yourself if you need to add any accessories or anything like that. The web shop connection does require one additional power user role, and that additional power user can't be assigned to a real person. It's just responsible for managing the web shop connection.
Okay, I think we have another question here from Bob. Asking lots of questions, Bob, here. He's wondering if we're based in Holland. Yes, we are. Allison, do we offer support during Eastern business hours or US business hours in general, North American business hours?
Yes, of course. We offer support from 9 to 5 East Coast hours. So yes, of course, we're there for you. Anybody else have any remaining questions before we wrap everything up? I have to say, you guys have been a great audience. I really appreciate all the great questions. All right, Tim, are we looking good? No more questions?
Yeah, I think we're looking good for now.
Right.
I think everybody seems to be happy. So you're very welcome, Frank. Glad we could help you out.
Thank you, Frank. We appreciate it.
Okay, perfect.
All right, guys.
And yeah, Allison, go for it.
All right, guys. Well, we appreciate your time today. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Tim. We can do a one-on-one if you have some questions on a specific area. But we will send you a recording tomorrow, so feel free to share that with the rest of your team. And again, if you need anything, just let us know. We hope you guys have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.